Hi, guys. Welcome to Real Food Recovery. We are on episode 27, and we are continuing our forgiveness series. We are on part 2, forgiveness. It's not for chumps. So this was been such a topic that's near and dear to our hearts that we have more to say about it. So before we get into that, though, I want to say hi to Jamie. What is happening?
Hi, I'm happy to be here. This series is something that is really important to us, and it's something that's kind of flowing out of us. But Paige, you are leading the way on this, so thank you. Thank you for taking the charge on this one.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm learning from you a lot. I think, guys, Paige and I always talk about when we talk about our podcast to others, we say it's a labor of love because we're not in this for the money. In case anyone's wondering.
Nobody's getting rich.
We're not getting rich off Real Food Recovery. But aren't we though? Aren't we rich in spirit?
Oh, yes, totally.
Aren't we rich in spirit? So however, what we are, and I can't speak for Paige, but for me, I'm getting a lot out of this partnership. It's holding up a mirror for me to look into on things that I either need work on or have worked on but needed to look at again. And this is one of them. Forgiveness is one of them. And when we were brainstorming about these episodes on forgiveness, and my joke that I didn't really know was a joke, because it really was the way I thought, was that forgiveness was for chumps. Like, I really thought that is the only people that forgave other people were chumps or doormats or people that got the wool pulled over their eyes on a regular basis. I that's what I was taught growing up, and that is what I believed until I was in my 40s. I'm embarrassed to say, but it's true.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and dive in then. We know that forgiveness has health benefits. It helps stress, lowers blood pressure, reduces anxiety. We get better sleep, less muscle tension, and better immune function. In general, forgiveness has an overall positive impact on emotional health, well-being, and empathy for others. It also leads to more fulfilling relationships, including the one you have with yourself. So don't you feel less stressed when you can let go of something or right after you have resolved an issue with someone? I know I do. Oh my gosh, it's a visceral reaction, right? I literally feel a sensation of that saying, it's a ton of bricks lifted off your shoulders. I feel that. I feel lighter. I hate carrying around bitterness, hurt. It's ugly, and it's a physical lifting. So what about you?
Yeah, I spent so many years carrying around unforgiveness and resentments and just general coulda, shoulda, wouldas about others and myself. Not There was plenty of self unforgiveness that was happening. It contributed to my eating and overeating. It kept myself, I really kept myself, I believe, fat, so I couldn't get too much attention or ridicule. I've been told many times in my past that it was about the weight, that I had, or walked around with the weight of the world on my shoulders. That was feedback that's been given to me as recent as a couple of years ago. And I really just thought that's what life was, and that it was my responsibility. That heaviness that I carried around with me just showed in body shape, right? Because I really have a very strong responsibility to fix things or to please people or to do things right. And it really was just, a representation of deep sadness and unforgiveness.
Yeah.
The last big point, reference here about forgiveness is that forgiveness, can help you reconcile, but it's important to understand that you can do this without resuming contact or picking a relationship back up. So Paige, you mentioned a moment ago about, feeling like the weight of the world, or the ton of bricks was lifted off your shoulders. I want to stress a couple things on that. That is very true, and it's my experience as well. But I used to think that I could only feel that way if something was resolved with another person, meaning I had to have a conversation, or an apology was made on my part or the part of the other person, or there was some big shift in the universe that we were able to come to a truce or an agreement or a connection point with another person. That is not the case. That those things do not always need to happen. They're wonderful if they do. It
Mhm.
shows a lot of growth and awareness on both parties, but it's not typically what happens. What typically happens when we're talking about forgiveness is we allow it to go within ourselves. We allow acceptance, and we'll talk about what that looks like again. And we talked about it in the first episode. We allow acceptance. We allow this sort of resolution in our own spirit, in our own soul around the topic. It doesn't mean that we ever had a conversation or that anything ever got resolved,
Mhm.
but we allow it to sort of um, let it go. And so again, when we think about picking a relationship back up with someone that's hurt us, and we do have, if we have unforgiveness around it, um, we have to really look at how we can move forward with that person, or if we can move forward with that person.
Mhm.
There might be, that's why forgiveness and unforgiveness in this case is so, it's so toxic. Unforgiveness, if we're waiting around for another person to do something differently so we'll feel
Mhm.
better, that's our first mistake. Other
Right.
people can't, other people or outside situations can't fix us. We can let go of the burden and move on, and that can help us move forward in a way that's healthy, even if the other person or the situation is never resolved.
Mhm.
And so when we look at, either our own mistakes or others making mistakes, forgiving them could open the door to having a relationship with them in the future, or it can open the door to you just moving on
Mhm.
with a lighter heart and a lighter soul, and not having another relationship with that person, or picking up where you left off, or even reconnecting with them. um you know for me, I've learned that relationships are not repaired in my time. They're repaired in God's time. And so it's not going to mend itself immediately. And even if a conversation is had and apologies are said, it doesn't mean that things are going to go back to the way they were either.
Right.
Um, do you have any success stories on that page?
Well, I have one that stands out a lot, and this is, I hate to use the word haunted me, but it's been heavy on me for several years. I had a best friend for 20 years who hurt me deeply. I gave 70% in the relationship. She gave 30%, which was fine with me most of the time because when we were together, we had so much fun. We laughed till my belly ached, and I had never met anybody like that. She was highly intelligent, very quick witted, but she was flaky. And she only replied to my texts half the time, but I loved her so much. I put up with it until I didn't. Big life lesson in there. She hurt me deeply when I had experienced a loss in our family, and she didn't reach out to me for a couple weeks, even though she full well knew what was going on at the time. The writing was on the wall. I had to let go of this relationship because it wasn't equal and I was progressively getting hurt. And that only leads to resentment, I have come to find. I miss her to this day, but I know if I got back into it, nothing would change. I would be there for her and she would be there for me when it was convenient for her. But the pain has lessened over the past few years, and I'm grateful for that. It was a tremendous loss because I don't have a lot of close friends. I mostly just have my daughters as far as extreme closeness.
Mhm.
But that was something I had to draw a boundary around for my own dignity. I do look forward to interacting with her occasionally on Facebook. And if she needed anything, I would be there in an instant.
Right.
So the success is that there's some contact and less pain, and I that may be as good as it gets for now, and
Right.
that's okay. I that's part of the acceptance in the situation, part of being adult. But here's the big success, the big lesson for me that I took away and some personal growth I developed. I have to take accountability that I let this imbalance relationship go on with eyes wide open. I'm not blameless. So it helped me mature knowing that
That's
now
right.
what I will and won't tolerate in relationships. And I have to blame myself for staying in an unequal relationship. And honestly, question myself, why did I do it? Why was I so desperate to stay in an imbalanced relationship? So it helps to turn the focus on me. That helps in forgiveness of her is to accept my part. I'm
Mhm.
sure I did it because the good times were so good. It was like a drug I couldn't quit. And I felt like some connection was better than none. And now I know it's not. Eventually, that's going to blow up. That's not a sustainable situation. So
Right. Those
a lot of
extremes.
big lessons.
Yeah. Well, and I love what you said about it being like a drug, right? There, that connection you had, those times with
Mhm.
her, as good as they, when they were
So
really good,
good.
they were like a drug. And
Yeah.
that's really hard to, you mentioned like the roller coaster, right? So you were sort of, and I, in the dating world before I was remarried, they talked a lot about, the addictive love cycles,
Yes.
or being in relationships and romantic
Mhm.
relationships with people that you became addicted to, because they would give you a little bit, and then they would
Yeah.
back up, and then they'd
That's
give
it.
you a little bit, and then they'd back up.
Mhm.
And I learned in the dating world how to suss that out quickly, but I learned in just in general, relationships in general, how important it was for me to, when I felt like things were uneven, to ask myself, okay, am I okay with it being uneven?
Mhm.
And if not, then what can I change? Because I cannot get another person to do something differently. I can share my feelings, but I can't change them.
Right.
And the other thing is, we have I look at these concentric circles, right? Like sort of a bullseye.
Mhm.
And then the center of the center of that circle is my relationship with God of my understanding. And then, my husband and myself and my inner family, those are all in that inner circle. And then everything outside of that, people move on different concentricities around and outside of that center circle. So what
Mhm.
happened, it sounds like to you, was this person you thought was maybe on the second circle from the center.
Mhm.
It's really, from her perspective, might have been on the third or fourth. So now you aligned and moved out to the third or fourth circle.
Mhm.
And it doesn't mean that she's not in your life, doesn't mean that you have to have this horrible resentment or grudge against her. It just means that you just moved her around.
Oh, I love that perspective. I love that a lot, especially because one of the other points I want to bring up is that I think in relationships, we often stay connected because of tradition. This was a 20-year
Of
relationship.
course.
So you just think it's a 20-year relationship. You got to stay in it, right? We've
Mhm.
traveled all over the world and done all these big, deep things, and our families are interconnected and our children know one another. And so it's not, there's layers of complication
Right,
when
I can imagine.
and so it just makes you stay in it longer. You don't want to cause a problem,
Yeah,
a big kerfluffle. So yeah.
yeah.
What about
And
you?
well, I will, made me think of anything around forgiveness or unforgiveness is something that I think about with my own dad. He has been, and I've talked about him a little bit on other episodes, but he and I have an estranged relationship for the most part. There are times when where we had reconnection periodically, and then um,
Mhm.
it became something that I was not able to keep doing, right? To stay connected with him, because of the choices he would make.
Mhm.
And I used to think that there was something really wrong with me, because I'm like, well, I have to be the problem. I've been told I'm the problem all my life by him, so it must be me. And I realized it's not. And it's not to say that he's the problem. It's just that I'm not meant to have a close relationship with him. And the faster I can accept that, the faster that I can accept that what I will do for him and what I won't do for him, what I will allow in my life when it comes to him and what I won't, the faster I can accept that, the better off that I am.
Mhm.
The more peace that I have. And I realize that it's my decision, it's my choices. I don't have to, just because he's my dad and in my family, I don't have to, give him the same access to me that others have.
Mhm.
And there are some members of the family that understand this, and say, hey, you do you, girl, keep going. And there are unfortunately a few members of the family that think that I am, selfish and horrible, and can't believe that I don't have a relationship with him, and I'm not willing to assist him in his later years. But I choose to assist the people that assist him. I choose to stay involved and advocate for his health and well-being from outside of the inner circle. And that feels very right for me. And so I have to, protecting my recovery, as you always say, Paige, protecting our recovery is our number one priority, right?
Right.
Keeping ourselves safe in recovery is our number one
Mhm.
priority. It is not for me, it is not safe to let my dad into those inner circles of my of my life. It's just not a safe place for me. It's not something that I'm able to successfully navigate and keep my peace and serenity. So I learned to keep my love for him and to keep him in prayer and to keep him in, and like, I hope and pray that you make different choices,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to expose myself to getting hurt anymore. So
Yes.
that's really what it comes down to. It's okay, even someone like a parent, we don't have to keep on those inner circles if they're
Mm.
consistently hurting us and treating us in a way um, that we know is going to take us away from the things that bring us peace and the things that bring us healing.
You mentioned there are people I can't remember if you said it was your family that,
Oh
but
yeah,
there's people who don't agree with the
absolutely.
fact. What do we say
Close
about
family,
those? Yeah,
close family.
I don't, what do we make of that? What do we make of someone who thinks you should go into a situation where there's potential harm? I'm assuming they understand that part. I mean,
Oh, they understand it, and I remember that they have their own relationships with him. So they might be siblings or cousins or uh people that are connected to him historically in many, many different ways and deeper ways than I am,
mhm,
really. Because think about it, people that grew up with my dad have known him twice as long as I have.
mhm, right.
So they might have very, very different experiences of him. And I have to remember that what they're doing that they think is right is based on their experience
Mhm,
and their view of him.
mhm,
And it's not up to me to try to change that or fix
right.
that. It's up to me just to do what's right for me and to
Mhm,
let all of the chips fall where they may, and if
mhm.
somebody is going to judge, if others judge us for our choices that we make in relationships, it is not, it's not up to us to change it.
Yeah. That's what I wanted you to just go full circle and address that about people who may not agree with your forgiveness choices, because I think that's part of the process.
Exactly.
It becomes a cumbersome part that you will have to deal with. It's part of reality because not everyone's going to agree with your boundaries that you set.
Exactly.
So you have to be prepared to take that on as well. So I'm glad we covered that topic.
Yeah.
Okay, so we recognize that people in pain often cause pain themselves, and that can help you cultivate compassion without condoning or minimizing their actions. This is a good place to start when you are ready to process the emotions around hurt. You have to develop some understanding of the other person and their circumstances. I love this next sentence that we're going to share, that you can't truly forgive without empathy and compassion. And I love this big point about looking at that person as a whole versus just
Mhm.
this bad act. Where did that come
That's
from?
right.
Could they have ended up any different than they are now? Are they a product of their environment? And I I want, before we go on and give some tips with this, we want to make clear that compassion and boundaries are two separate things.
That's right.
Just because you have compassion for someone, their circumstances, the life they've led as a child, that doesn't mean that you can just accept them carte blanche. So there
That's right.
still needs to be boundaries. So if you're ready, we do have a few tips for you in this. This is a very sensitive situation. So,
Mhm. Yeah. So the first one is, really talk to someone you trust. It will help you articulate your feelings and you'll feel supported as you begin to heal. It's not something you need to go through alone.
mhm. Also, you can try meditation if that's your thing. This takes practice. I ain't good at it. I've tried it and it lasts about 3 seconds and then I'm making my grocery list. But people swear by, I get my my most deepest thinking done during a meditation practice. But if you can do it, I know people swear by it, but so just an option.
Also, we talk about it in our recovery community, but reframing things, finding the bright side. In time
Mhm.
that you may have emotional space, right, to notice any benefits that come from the situation. Like I with my dad's situation, I used to always for years just woe is me. My dad, wasn't involved in my life, and now is acting, like he deserves something because of his choices. And
Mhm.
I used to, it was very victim and martyr kind of mindset. And now I realize that, what, having my dad be so uninvolved in me and my life, um and treat me the way he did, and be the way he was with me, um and that has given me an immense empathy for others. It's
Mhm.
given me an immense
Yeah.
ability to love myself and to care for myself in spite of what others do or don't do when it comes to me. And it's given me an immense ability to be resilient.
As you were talking about that, I was thinking about you. This gave you an opportunity to really find out who you are in the fact that question, is this true? The things that
Right.
how he's
Oh
treating me,
yeah.
is that really true?
Oh,
So I love that so
I
much.
believed they were. I believed
Right.
all of the things he said about me, and jokes he made about me were true until, unfortunately, until recently. But you know what? Hey, it took me a long time, but at least I got there.
Yes, it opened up the door for you to question if that's really true, if that's really who I am. So I do see where that is can be looked at as a gift. I love that point. Another one is write a letter if you prefer to avoid face-to-face contact, especially if is an issue. I saw this meme about journaling, and it was this heart that was filled with all this silly string just going every different direction, and then it had a straight arrow and another heart with those strings organized just around the perimeter.
Mhm.
So writing things out helps us organize those thoughts in our head, and it may reduce the need to actually physically see that person. Just getting it worked out in your own mind often is enough.
Yes, yes, exactly. Very true. Again, and that's why, by the way, journaling, writing, that a whole exercise process,
Yeah.
even, losing my mom all those years ago, I was, one of the most cleansing things I did was because I never got to have any closure conversations with her. I never got to ask
Mhm.
her any questions. It was a sudden loss. So we were close. We were very close at the time. And so it was something where I had so many things that I wanted to ask her and so many things I wanted to say. So I wrote a series of journal entries and letters, and that really helped heal
Nice.
what I could heal. And I was lucky enough to have her. It sounds woo woo, but
No, I love
she
that.
visited me in dreams, and we were able to have some conversations.
Oh, that's beautiful. I've
Um,
got that lump in my throat. I hope it's not my turn to talk.
it's not. So when we talk about sharing your feelings with someone else, so sometimes you can't share it with that person directly,
Yeah,
right? I know that I can never share it with the way I feel about my dad with my dad. It's not received
right.
in a way that's loving or kind. And
Mhm.
it doesn't, it's a conversation that's just like talking to a brick wall.
Mhm.
So it helps though to have people that you trust in your life that you can share
Mhm.
it with. And again, in my mom's case where she'd passed away, verbalizing my feelings about her, or the thoughts or questions I had, that really was very helpful with, on paper or with another person.
I was thinking as you were talking about that, when you're sharing your feelings with someone you trust and you get that validation
Mhm.
from a trusted source, it just changes everything, doesn't it?
Totally.
Just that validation of, okay, I'm seeing things clearly. It's just like a big sigh. I love that
It
point.
does, but I want to just add to that really quick. The validation that if we get it from another person is amazing, but we
Yeah,
have to give ourselves that validation.
totally.
That is that inner reparenting work that we talk about all the time.
Totally, totally. And I will say, I'm going to use you and I for an example. If I have an idea and it's just so nice because I trust and value you and your opinion, and I know that I know how your mind thinks. If you say, "Yeah, okay, that's good. We should do this," or "I don't think so," it really helps reinforce
Mhm.
me. So I do appreciate the relationship we have, and you're that person for me.
Yeah, yay. Good.
Mm.
I'm honored.
Thank you. So the last one is focus on the good things in life, can go a long way in working things out in our noggin. We talk a lot about in recovery. One of the big gifts in recovery is reframing negative thoughts. Oh my goodness. It literally, I was doing it with someone today who they were concerned about some health and welfare for a spouse, and they had done some searching around for some information on the internet or Facebook like that, and they felt like they were maybe being a little bit
Mhm.
sneaky about that. And I said, how about if we can reframe that to you're gathering information so you can
Yeah,
be the best advocate for that person, but
absolutely.
that helped change their whole focus and outlook. And when it's just so funny how just one little suggestion literally can whip you around 180 degrees,
Mhm.
and it's like, "Okay,
It's like a
I
light
got
switch.
the" yes, it's literally like a light switch, and you think, "Okay, I got this. I can do this now."
It's
It's
really
just it helps. It helps a lot. So and it's a
green.
skill set too. It's a little
Yes,
game you can play with yourself, and you can always pull out silver linings.
very true.
So something that has to be addressed is the topic of people who won't forgive you for something
Yeah.
you have done. Since none of us are perfect, I am sure we have wronged others at some point. But what if they won't forgive you? What do we do then? And you know what? This can happen because uh,
Life
people
is
have,
life.
yeah, people have their own choices,
People are human.
and sometimes when you are a jerk, there are consequences, and you don't get to choose if someone forgives you. You have to man up and say you're sorry and hope for the best. Part of being sorry is changing your behavior and moving forward.
Exactly. Exactly. And I had this situation, there's been uh, with people in my life who I've hurt, right? When I was in deep in my addiction. And for me, deep in my addiction didn't look like excess weight. It looked like, I was walking around in a smaller body, but I was
Mhm.
still deeply food addicted and deeply, codependent and looking for things outside of me to make me feel better. And I hurt my ex-husband and had hurt the family a lot, our family a
Mhm.
lot, with choices I made and things I wasn't able to say. I'm not saying that I was the only person walking around, hurting. There were people that were hurting me for sure with their choices. But I'm only here to talk about me. So when my ex and I separated, what I thought was going to be amicable and loving and we'd stay connected, very quickly it was clear that we were not,
Mm.
there was no intention from that family to stay amicable or stay connected. There was the intention to just completely cut me out of their lives. And that was very painful, very,
Yeah.
very painful. They on paper sort of wished me well, so to speak.
Yeah.
And stayed connected with other people outside of me in my
Mhm.
circle, but when it came to me, they were, I was persona non grata, and it was very, very painful because that's not who I am. That's not my heart. And I knew that the choices that I made and the things that I did were not me either. They were, my addiction. They were, a force outside of, inside of me, but it was controlling me. I had such shame around, sort of being categorically cut out of their lives. People that I, was close to for 15 years
Oh,
and
wow.
we're no longer close to. So it was very hard, tremendous loss for me, tremendous loss of loved ones, loss of mother figures and father figures and sister figures, loss of nieces and nephews who I loved like my own children.
Mhm.
And it was just very, very painful.
Yeah.
And so, for me, it's, if they won't forgive me, I can't change them. I can't change anything about that. I certainly wrote letters. I certainly tried making phone calls and outreaches and apologizing and all of the work of recovery, right? Where you go out to make the amends and to apologize and own your part. And some of that I was able to do, and some of it with people that I deeply love, I was not able to do. There, for lots of reasons, logistical reasons, and the phone numbers changing and addresses changing, and I was never able to do it. And I realized that it was up to me to kind of move on, even though they were going to stay in unforgiveness of me or wanted no contact with me. That is something that I had to let go of. I couldn't control the outcome. The only, God, the creator of the universe, can control the outcome on that one.
Mhm.
There's not a day that goes by I don't think about, especially the nieces and nephews, and miss them
Right.
deeply, and hope that they reach out to me someday.
Yeah.
But I have to be okay with the fact that they won't. And my amends, um, or my solution, if you will, to move forward is to do the best I can for the people that are in my life today.
I love that.
And that is my way to sort of make right all the wrong that I did, that I can't undo, that I'll never probably have the chance, maybe have the chance to undo
Mhm.
with those people.
Yeah, beautiful story, very sobering. I guess I'm lucky in that my ex's family are tolerate me and are nice to me. That would be extremely painful.
Mm.
Thank you for sharing that. It's reality of what sometimes things can look like, and that's we've talked a lot about forgiveness, and one of the number one steps is just accepting reality for what the situation is and focusing on the things we can control and the things we can't control. That's the very beginning steps of forgiveness, so thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
A couple points we want to make. Hurting people may be just a side product of not being in a good place mentally. It may be that we had a bad read on a situation and
Mhm.
maybe a wrong decision because of it. It could also be that we were unhealthy, toxic. We were an unhealthy, toxic
Mhm.
person doing things that toxic people do.
That's right.
M-
Yep.
m-
Been there, done that.
yeah. Maybe it was an act of harm that we didn't realize was abusive at the time, or maybe we didn't pay enough attention to the harm we inflicted because we assumed that the other person would just get over it or suck it up. I'm sure I'm guilty of that as well.
Mm.
People make the wrong choices a lot. As you build healthy boundaries and start enforcing them, though, you're going to find that other people will start bouncing off of those. Sometimes that means cutting people out of your life or being the one that is cut out. So,
Mhm.
what do you do when someone won't accept your apology?
That was a perfect, my story is a perfect example of that, right?
Yeah.
With several people.
Hmm.
I had to accept that I could not change that. I had to accept that, that these were people that I loved and considered friends or family, and that what I thought should be, I had to set aside.
Hmm.
The outcomes that I expected, the things that I believed should happen, I had to set that aside.
Hmm.
Um, and I had to sort of remember that some people only apologize because they want to be forgiven. They don't actually
Hmm.
change. And it's not because they actually care about how their actions affected others. Um, Most of us tell an apology is not genuine. Uh, or here's the thing: the bottom line is, for me, an apology is only genuine when there's changed behavior behind it.
Hmm.
And it's very hard when your apology is genuine and the people that you want to apologize to and change behavior for don't want anything to do with you.
Hmm.
That's the ultimate test of, okay, universe, okay, I'm going to keep doing these right things over here. And if it's meant for me to have a relationship with those people in the future, I will. And if not,
Hmm.
you're seeing it, God.
Yeah.
You're seeing it. And
Hmm.
so that's how I've had to move forward when people won't accept my apology.
Yeah, I agree with that. Another one is examine the quality of your apologies. So when my kids were little, the thing that really ticked them off the most when they've done something wrong, or hurt their sibling. I'm talking about when they were not toddlers, but 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I would make them hug each other and say they were sorry. That was like the worst torture that they could do. So, and by the way, the hug and the sorry usually went like, sorry,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That was the beginning and end of a
Mhm.
millisecond hug with sorry. So examining the quality of your apology really can make a difference if people can see that you're making this good faith effort to apologize, if they feel like they can see change in your behavior, like we've talked about, those apologies are more believable. It really doesn't mean much if you keep repeating those same harmful behaviors. So, um, yeah, I think it makes a big difference if people know if it's heartfelt or just
Yes,
a brushing off and a check mark.
that's right. For me, the thing that I think about here, the next thing is taking responsibility for the harm we caused. So
Hmm.
keeping our side of the street clean, as they say in the
Hmm.
recovery world. Um, do we make it clear that we accept responsibility for our own actions? How do we do that, right? How do we have those
Hmm.
conversations? And sometimes it's not about a conversation at all. Sometimes it's about just doing the things that you don't want to do when you don't want to do them, because you know it's the
Hmm.
right thing to do. And if the people see it, great. And if people don't see it, great.
Hmm.
But it's taking responsibility and making the changes, right? So, words are I used to think words were everything, and they're really not. They're
Hmm.
they can be said by many
Yeah.
people about many situations,
Hmm.
and they don't necessarily mean that they're going to change um, the outcome, right, or their
Hmm.
behavior if they're said. But
Hmm.
if you acknowledge the pain that was caused, acknowledged how you hurt them, and you change your behavior over time, um, there's a chance not only for the other person, but really for yourself, that you will start to see yourself in a better light, and really esteem yourself, right? Instead of waiting
Hmm.
for other people to sort of forgive you or bless you with
Hmm.
their words or presence.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. The next one is knowing that forgiveness is their choice. You have got to accept that is their choice just because you want to be forgiven. My youngest daughter, she went through so many high school boyfriends that they would do something wrong and then they would say sorry and expected her just to come on, let's get with it. So that's, the sign of immaturity. But
Mm-hmm.
when you cannot put your time frame on someone else's forgiveness process. So, one thing that you can do is ask a person why. If they choose not to forgive, you can ask why. And you can look at their answer, as an opportunity to help guide you with your future choice and
Mm-hmm.
action so you don't make those mistakes again. So, um, it could be a source of communication error. So, having a conversation about it is okay. But ultimately it is their choice. You can only control what you can control.
That's right. That's right. Um, and the next thing that we have on our list about this topic is letting some time pass and apologize if you
Mhm.
can. That's something we can try. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's I'm learning, I can't speak for others, but I'm learning that it's not my timeline. It's the universe's timeline. It's not mine. I,
Yeah.
I might want things to
Mhm.
happen faster, but it's not meant
Mhm.
to. Um, the wound sometimes is too fresh, and
Yeah.
people just are not able to forgive. You're not able to forgive. Paige, I think about this often when we're not recording podcasts, but you on one of our podcasts said that you're a slow processor. I had no
Mhm.
idea that I was, but I am. And
Mhm.
so it's very helpful to me to remember I'm a slow processor. And you talked about your 3-day rule, how you
Mhm.
give yourself 3 days to let something percolate and sort of
Mhm.
come to a place where you accept or understand it. And that is something that I really appreciate, because I was able to understand that giving myself time, giving others time for things to change was maturity, and was
Yes.
a loving thing to do.
Mhm. I love that. One of the points that we have around this is, I love this point about don't ever beg for forgiveness.
Mhm.
That's not how healthy relationships work. And you said 3 days. So this point jumped out at me about don't ever beg or ask forgiveness more than 3 times.
Right,
I think
right.
that's fair, don't you?
Absolutely, absolutely. And, you know, because here's the thing, if you're asking for it and it's not happening, chances are, for all the reasons we talked about, the other person's not ready and
Yeah.
you're not meant to have that. So it's not, we're not in control of that process.
And no one wants to feel badgered.
Exactly.
Will you forgive me yet? Will you forgive me yet? No, that's
No,
not. And you know what? That's not showing genuine love and concern for that other person
exactly.
by giving them their space. So yeah.
Exactly.
So don't sacrifice your self-respect for forgiveness. People aren't always good. Some people will look at your quest for forgiveness as an opportunity to exert control over you by using your guilt as leverage. No bueno. I ain't into that. So I thought that was a great point to you know if people are trying to use it for leverage and for nefarious purposes. So
Yes, I
freaking-
grew up with that.
yeah,
Unfortunately, I grew
yeah,
up in that scenario, and I never understood how hurtful and damaging it was.
yeah.
The guilt trips.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, yeah, you summed it up well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, and when I think about the guilt trips, right? There's so many psychological fallout, so much psychological fallout that comes from a guilt trip, right? It's really you're psychologically, and this is a strong word, but I believe it's true. You're psychologically abusing the other person.
Yes.
There's potential for gaslighting, there's potential for building,
Yes.
there's potential for, and we see it all the time in social media and young people, and how, when they're guilt tripped on social media,
Mhm.
how it can quickly go from a guilt trip to a bully.
Yeah,
And that those scars, they run deep.
I agree.
And if you don't have, and many of our youth, we know their brains are not fully developed, right, until we're in our 20s. So if you've got a
Mhm.
teenager, they don't understand, they can't process, they don't have the emotional maturity to understand and process what's happening and what they can control and what they can't. They
Right.
just think that they have to fix something that they can't fix.
Mhm.
And the guilt trip makes it worse, or turns into bullying, and we all know where that road can go.
Great
So
point.
it's so imperative why, that this next topic of letting the situation go, knowing what we
Mhm.
can control and knowing what we cannot control. I
Mhm.
cannot control what another person thinks of me, and I
Mhm.
will not, after spending so many years, oh my gosh, so many years, just being so sick with
Mhm.
worry about what other people think of me, and wishing that I
Mhm.
could change things that I can't change. I
Mhm.
realized that the best thing I can do for myself and my recovery is to let it go. And what that means for me, and I really think that the action, like, I used to be like, well, how do I let it go? I can't let it go. I keep picking it back up again. It's because I'm not accepting it. I'm not
Right.
accepting that this is what is. This is what I did. This is what they did. This is what was said. And this is what happened.
Mhm.
And the sooner that I can accept something, the better off I am on accepting that I'm not in control of it.
Yeah, and forgiving yourself. Yeah,
Mhm.
I love it.
Absolutely.
Well, we're going to wind up with a thought, and then we've got 4 quick listener questions. This has been so good. But one last thought is we're all flawed people doing the best we can to get through life.
Mhm.
Sometimes we do bad things or toxic things because we don't know any better and we're still growing. Sometimes the person you're apologizing to faces similar hurdles on their own path of growth and development. If the person won't accept your apology and forgive you, well, hey, that's just how it goes sometimes. Chalk it up to learning experience, looking for the lesson, and strive to not make that same mistake in the future. And you never know, things may come back around in the future where you can make amends and they can accept your apology and forgive you. I love the prepositional phrase for now. I hang on to that a
Yes.
lot in recovery. It brings me a lot of peace and hope. But
Mhm.
lastly, if you have any forgiveness stories, if you that you would like to share, please let us know and we'll be happy to pay them forward because we're all in this together and together we learn to be the best versions of ourselves
That's right.
possible.
That's right.
So go ahead.
No, I think that those listener questions are so helpful because
Mm-hmm.
Guys, we're all on different levels or phases of this journey. Some of us are
Mhm.
infants when it comes to this, and I will say that I'm probably maybe a, a toddler level of forgiveness. I'm very late to the party, very, very late to the party, because I did
Mhm.
not know that people forgave and that it was a thing to do. So, what's the first question we have, Paige?
Okay. What if I'm not ready? Well, if you're not ready, it's okay. It can take time. It's a
For now,
process.
for
Yeah,
now,
for now,
for
it's a
today.
yeah, it's a process. Authenticity is essential. It doesn't help anyone if you're still holding on to pain and anger. It just won't work. So the big takeaway is forgiveness is an inside job. You get to design it at your pace. And by the way, have you heard that the best revenge is just moving on and having a good life? The best revenge is forgiveness with boundaries.
That's right.
So it's okay if you're not ready. Take your time.
That's right.
Nobody's timing you.
That's right. That's right. All right. Second question. I can forgive, okay, but I can't forget. Now what? What do I do?
Hmm.
So, you know what? That's where the whole the concept of what we can control and what we can't control comes in.
Hmm.
So we can control the fact that we can let it go. We can control that we don't have control over the other person or their perception or their reconciliation with us. But the forgetting part, yes, that's normal. We're human and we will process things again, right? Those memories linger. But here's the thing, the not forgetfulness, for me, I've learned is an example of unacceptance, where I don't accept reality.
Hmm.
If I'm bringing something up and living it again and again,
Hmm.
reliving, resenting, by the way, is
Hmm.
reliving. It's just the
Good
Latin
point.
form of that word. That's an indication that I've got some letting go and acceptance to do. So again, it's okay to sort of say, okay, once bitten, twice shy. That's one thing where we're sort of guarding our heart, but it's a whole other thing to keep bringing it up again and again and again in our own
Hmm.
minds, because what that there's not, I don't think it's that fine of a line. I think it's kind of a big heavy black line between, you know once bitten, twice shy and a full-on resentment.
Hmm.
And it can grow from there to there. It could cross that line
Hmm.
before we even realize it, but it is a boundary breach. It is something
Yeah.
that does not serve us.
Yeah. I never heard that before. Revisiting is the same as resentment.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, what if they aren't sorry? Do I still have to forgive? Oh my gosh, this is a good one, right? This can be tricky and it sure doubles the pain, doesn't it? And this can happen. So for beginners, this is a gift because you know who you're dealing with. And when people tell you who they are, believe them the first time. It is normal to want someone to regret the pain they inflicted. Of course, you want them to be terribly
Yeah.
sorry. The truth is, this doesn't always happen. Some
Nope.
people aren't capable of recognizing when they cause pain. Others don't see their mistakes or simply don't care. You may never get an explanation or an apology. So letting the bitterness and resentment maintain a hold over you only gives them back the power. So they still have power over you.
That's right.
Instead of letting the past hold you back, use what you've learned from the experience to take steps towards protecting yourself from future pain.
That's right.
Practicing, I emphasis on the word practicing
Yeah.
forgiveness and taking action to live your best life can help you find joy and peace. This is a sad reality. Sometimes people are just jerks and they ain't sorry.
That's right.
Shoulder
That's
shrug
very true.
for those that can't see us, shoulder
Yeah.
shrug.
Yeah.
That's just life.
It is what it is. And
That will definitely happen at some point.
I absolutely, I'm not, it usually happens on the road, right? I am not the creator of the universe. I am not
Mhm.
there. I'm not those people's, God or higher power. It is not my job to change
Mhm.
them. Yeah, very true. So the last question we got, how do I know if someone is truly sorry? Another good
Yeah,
question.
yeah,
The short answer is you'll never know.
right,
Truly, you'll never, because we're not able to mind read. I mean, if you
right.
if you can mind read, tell
Let us
us,
know.
because we'll have you on as a guest. But we'll interview you for real food recovery. But most of us can't. And so we'll never really know. Here's how I discern it. There's a spirit of discernment that we all get, right? In our spiritual journeys. And with maturity, we can discern situations better. For me, if I see consistent changed behavior,
Yes.
consistent self-examination of the part of the other person,
Mhm.
that usually is an indication that someone is truly sorry because they're changing their behavior.
Mhm.
When someone is not truly sorry, uh, they won't change their behavior. Or my favorite is when they'll give the hollow apology. By the
Yeah.
way, a good apology, a healthy apology, does not start with "I'm sorry, you dot dot dot."
Yeah.
Right?
I'm
I'm
sorry,
sorry
but
you, yeah, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry that you felt that, no, none of
Mhm.
those are apologies. An
Yeah.
apology always, a healthy apology always starts, and it might take days and it might take years and it might never come,
Mhm.
but it always sounds like I'm sorry,
I Mhm.
fill in the blank, right? It could be a
Yep.
hundred things, because
Agree.
unless someone's truly willing to look in the mirror at what the harm they've caused, or the hurt that they've caused, even if they didn't mean to,
I agree.
we're not saying people are walking around hurting other people on purpose. There are many situations where people are hurt and they don't even know that they're hurting others.
Mhm.
Um, and so it's important to remember that we don't really know. Changed behavior is the only way to suss that out.
Yeah. Good point. Good point to end on too, as a highlight
Yes.
of understanding. Yeah.
Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you. This was a great episode.
It
Loved
was
it.
one more episode, hopefully, on forgiveness, guys. And this is something that we'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this. So write in the chat on YouTube, or email, or excuse me, any of our social media platforms. Real Food Recovery on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, anywhere. Tell us what's going on,
Yeah.
what you're thinking about these episodes, if they're helping you.
We love it. Thanks, guys. See you next time.
See you soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.